Hey guys, welcome to the Tea with Nickie. Don't mind my dog running around in the back, as usual. Today's tea is mint tea, and like I've mentioned before, I really need to get some different teas. Today's topic is something that I think about a lot: colorism. I feel like this is important to talk about because for some reason I think it makes white privilege easier to talk about. I like to tell people, I'm like, I have white privilege too. And they're like, what do you mean, Nickie? You're a woman of color. What the fuck do you mean? Well, let me explain to you first what colorism fucking is. Colorism is basically kind of like a subset of racism, but within a race. Colorism means the preference of lighter skin and European features within a race. And so that goes for, being black as far as being like African American. It's also very prevalent in Asia, South Asia, East Asia, like pretty much every part of Asia. Colorism is a big thing. Colorism is a big thing all over the world. It's just this ingrained preference of European features and lighter skin within a race. Now, as far as the black side, I can tell you about the history of that. A lot of that goes back to the plantation, where slave masters would have sex with slaves, rape slaves, and have children with them, and of course that would produce mixed children, children of mixed heritage that are half white and half black. And of course those children would come out with a mix of white and black features: lighter skin, looser textured hair, and those slaves were seen as more desirable. They were seen as a higher status of slave. Those would usually be the house slaves. Those slaves would get to live in the house. They would be favored by the master. And basically it was definitely just another way of keeping us divided against each other and separate. So it was really fucked up. And it is something that has prevailed to today. It's something that is very prevalent within our culture still. Many people don't know about the paper bag test, but the paper bag test is something that was very much a thing when my grandparents were alive. Both my grandparents on my dad's side were black. My grandfather was lighter skinned because he is mixed with Irish and Scottish and Cherokee. So he was much lighter skinned, and he had hair texture similar to mine. My grandmother was dark skinned, Trinidadian, and so they were on two very different sides of the blackness spectrum as far as phenotype. And so the paper bag test was something within the black community that happened in church, where basically like they would test your skin color next to a paper bag, and if you were lighter than the paper bag, then you got to sit up in front in the church, and if you were darker than the paper bag, then you'd have to sit in the back or like upstairs. So basically it was a way to segregate ourselves within our own community. This is something that is still ingrained into us, that light skin is better. And there's a lot of harmful stereotypes that have come out about both light-skinned people and dark-skinned people within the black community. The preconception that light-skinned people, such as myself, are snooty, and we think that we're better than everybody, and we are maybe a little more fragile, and we're stuck up. This is a particularly harmful stereotype against light-skinned women, but it's also very prevalent against light-skinned men too. You'll definitely see a lot of light-skinned jokes, particularly on TikTok right now. That's a big thing. And then for darker skinned people, more aggressive, uglier, not as desirable, and just all in all inferior to lighter skinned people. This is something that happens within our race, within our own community, like just with us, which is really fucked up. It's also very hard when you are mixed race like me, and I am a hodgepodge of African descent, European, and Native American. And so the identity of black is usually stripped away from people of mixed heritage, and we are told by members of our own race that you're not really black, you're mixed. You don't get to claim that you're black, even though usually people outside of the race just they see you as black. Sometimes they don't. Like, I know sometimes if I pull my hair back, like really slick it back, very few people can tell that I am black. I know that there were black people that didn't know that I was black until I wore my hair out and they saw that my hair was textured, that they were like, "Oh, you're black." I'm like, "Fucking yeah, I am. I yes, I am." The fuck. So so this translates, how does this translate into society? Well, mixed children and mixed babies are very fetishized. Like, if you have an interracial couple, that couple will very likely experience comments like, "Oh, you guys are going to make such pretty babies." And of course, this isn't like, the people saying that don't necessarily mean any harm, but like the preconceived notion is that a purely black baby is ugly, but a black baby mixed with something else is pretty. And that's a very, very harmful, like, back of the head thought that goes into those comments, goes into comments like that. There's also a preference of portrayal of black people in media. When we are portrayed in media in a good light, there is definitely a preference of lighter skinned black people to show on screen or just in entertainment, period. There's a lot of speculation that, Beyonce, I love Beyonce, but Beyonce was the lighter skinned member of Destiny's Child, and she adopted her signature blonde hair. So there's a lot of discussion over whether or not, Beyonce is the one that rose to prominence the most out of Destiny's Child, above Kelly and Michelle, because she was light skinned and not necessarily because of talent, which is like awful. Another story that I have heard, and I am really sorry that I don't know this woman's name, but I think it's still worth mentioning here, that Rosa Parks became the face of the civil rights movement because she sat down on the bus in the non-color section and she didn't move when they told her to move. But there was a woman that did that a few years before her, either a few years or a few months before her, that was darker skinned. And there is, I think, there is a narrative out there that I admit I need to do more research into this, that Rosa Parks was chosen as the face of the civil rights movement because she was lighter skinned, and the woman that said no before her a few months ago was darker skinned, black, was very dark skinned. And so the NAACP itself chose Rosa Parks instead, or preferred to put her image out there instead of the other woman. I regret that I don't know that other woman's name, but I think that goes to show just how much light skin is preferred, and that, like, I don't know this woman's name, but I know Rosa Parks' name. Also in entertainment, I know that Amandla Steinberg apparently was the first actress tapped to play Shuri, T'Challa's sister, in Black Panther. Now, if you know what Amandla looks like, she is a very beautiful woman, but she is light-skinned. She's light-skinned, and she is lighter than literally everybody else playing the royal family in Black Panther. So if that had been the case, I know that I and definitely a lot of other black people would have been like, that doesn't fucking make any goddamn sense. Really? Like, I know that genetics can, be interesting sometimes, but she looks nothing like T'Challa. Okay, she looks nothing like Chadwick Boseman. Like, it just wouldn't have, that would have been weird. And she actually turned it down because of that, because of the issue of colorism, because she acknowledged that I am lighter skinned and this role needs to go to somebody that is darker skinned, because this is an opportunity for a darker skinned actress to be portrayed positively in the MCU of all places, and this is not a space that I need to take up. So as an entertainer, that is definitely something that I try to think about all the time, because when I was growing up and I was, trying to get discovered or whatever, and I would, talk to producers and stuff, like from the age of 13, and people would say that, oh my gosh, you have the look, like, you're cute, whatever, you have the look. And I always wondered what the look was, and then they would compare me to other people that had the look in their eyes, Beyonce, Jordan Sparks, women like that, and I realized what the look meant, and it makes me kind of cringe because I think the look means that you're black enough to be interesting and exotic, but not too black so that you are not undesirable or unapproachable. So like so you have that little cute mix of black but with something else. Like that's the part that makes you interesting, that's the part that makes you pretty, that's the part that makes you marketable. I learned that very, very early. And it's something that I think that I need to be aware of at all times. It's just like white privilege. A lot of people, white people get touchy about learning about white privilege because they don't want to acknowledge that they have it. But the thing is, you can't help it. You can't help how you were born. You can't help what skin color you have. And you can't help how other people perceive you. You can't help how the world has been conditioned to see people with lighter skin. You can't help that they've been preconceived to see you as more desirable, and thus you're more likely to get better jobs, you're more likely to get a better house, you're just more likely to get better opportunities in life because of how you look. And it's not your fault, but it's something that you have to be aware of. As an actress, and as a mixed race actress, I go into auditions, unfortunately, with the knowledge that the duality of the knowledge that there's roles that I'm going to go for that I'm not going to get because they're going to give it to a white person, probably because they feel more comfortable seeing a white person as a lead, as, I don't know, a princess, or the dainty role or whatever. I go into auditions knowing that that's very much a possibility. As a woman of color, which really, really sucks. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're more talented than me. It means that they just rather see them in that role than me. But also I go in knowing that I am also light skinned. And so I am more likely to get roles because there is a preference for lighter skin, for looser textured curls, for European features. I know that I have a few, European features in my face. And so that I know that I, even as a woman of color, am more likely to get certain jobs because people are generally more willing to see me in the spotlight, willing to see me on stage than someone with darker skin, more textured hair, that probably might be more talented than me. And I have to live with that knowledge all the time. Even on TikTok, there has been so much speculation about the algorithm and what it favors, and I live with that knowledge every day as I see my numbers go up, and I'm very happy for myself, but I'm also very aware that I'm sure that the algorithm probably favors me a little bit more because I am light-skinned and I have the exotic look. I have the look. It is something that I feel like I have to be aware of at all times because I want to make sure that I am truly working hard for everything I have. The thing about white privilege, the thing about light skin privilege is that, the reality is that maybe you didn't work as hard as you thought you did for certain opportunities. And that's a hard pill to swallow. But it makes sense when you think about how people are preconceived to see lighter skin and Eurocentric standards of beauty as, more attractive and more welcoming and less threatening. And so, it is very, very likely that there are things that if you have lighter skin, you have not worked as hard for. Because people just prefer you. And there's no way for you to know sometimes, like, how much of your life has been governed by that. But I think you can assume that it's been a pretty big part. And so I try to think about that because I think we have a responsibility to think about the certain privileges that we have. I try to use this as a gateway to open up to white privilege and to tell white people that they need to consider this too, because I do it as someone who was light-skinned and mixed race. What is the responsibility? The responsibility is to be aware that you have this privilege, to be aware that, you really should make sure that you are definitely working hard for everything that you have. You need to make sure that, as me as an entertainer, I want to make sure that I am honing my skills and I am truly skilled, because when I get a part, I want there to be not a shadow of a doubt or less of a shadow of a doubt that I got this role or I got this job because I deserved it, because I worked hard, and not just because someone would rather see me than someone else who is darker skinned and probably more talented than me. Okay. And I'm pretty sure that if that were the case, I would definitely feel it in my heart and soul, especially if I had the opportunity to see that other person, that other potential person, in action, and know that that person is more talented than me, and know that they picked me because of my skin color. That would feel really shitty. I don't ever want to feel like that, so I want to make sure that I'm working hard for everything that I have. And then the other thing, the other responsibility is to be able to step aside, just like Amandla did for Black Panther. When you realize that colorism is happening, when you realize that you are getting that preference, not necessarily because you're right for the role or because you're right for that opportunity, but because it seems more likely that people would just rather see you and your Eurocentric features than somebody else that is better for the part. And so to be able to have that wherewithal to be able to step aside and give that opportunity to somebody else is also part of our responsibility. And also, when you get to a state of prominence, I think it is also responsibility to create opportunity for people that have less privilege, to create opportunity for it, I guess in my realm, as far as entertainment, for entertainers and for artists that are darker skinned, that are overlooked by society because light skin and Eurocentric features are favored. And so when we get to that state, when we get to that point where we can call the shots and we can pay people's bills and we can write checks, we need to create opportunities for those people. Because that's the only way we're going to move forward. We've all been conditioned over many, many years of slavery, just of white supremacy in general, to, see, whiteness as a standard of beauty. And as a result, people that are mixed and people that are light-skinned are that much closer to that standard. And we need to move away from that. And so as a light-skinned person of color, you have to deal with the white supremacy part, and struggling with white privilege, but then you also have to be very, very aware of your light skin privilege and make sure that you are stepping aside when you need to. Now, that does not mean that it is okay to take away one's identity as being black because they are mixed. That's not fair. That I will say. Colorism is something that separates us within our races. And it leads us to, kind of want to safeguard it's just another way of safeguarding the purity of a race, the purity of being white or the purity of being black. And then other races, in other races such as Asia, where, people just come in different, they come in different ethnic groups, and a lot of those ethnic groups are not represented enough because the lighter skinned ethnic groups or lighter skinned features are favored in Asia even. And so colorism is something that separates us, so we need to be aware of our privilege, but also we need to not be taking away heritage from each other and to be discounting that, because I am mixed, but I am black. That is very much a part of my culture, is very much a part of my upbringing. It's very much a part of who I am. And, regardless of, how people see me, that is who I am, and unapologetically I'm going to claim that till the day I die. And so I think that's something that we can definitely get better at. Not everyone in the community is in agreement with that, but I really don't fucking care. So yeah, that's colorism. Like I said, I thought that was just something that I would like to talk about, especially because I am a light-skinned entertainer. I think that I know that I have benefited from light skin privilege, and it's something that I really want to call out, because the more people talk about it, the more people will probably start to make conscious decisions of whether or not to give roles to actors and entertainers based on their skill and based on their abilities, and not based on who they feel more comfortable seeing, and seeing not because of skill and not because of their acting chops, but because of their skin color. We need to eliminate that. So that has been the tea for today. Thank you so much. If there's anything else you want me to talk about, please let me know in the comments. I also do question and answers on my Instagram live, and so you can hit me up there. And you can DM me as well on Instagram. I do check those when I am able. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to this channel. And also please check out my TikTok, because that's where it's really popping. Almost at 500,000. Yay. All right, guys. This has been the team, and I will see you next time. Bye.